Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to make a Flippy Flappy card for someone special. Hope you enjoy. So I started this card with a piece of paper that's 5.5 inches squared. The finished card size will be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And I went all around the outside of the card with Chip Sapphire Distress Oxide. Once I'd finished going around the entire outer area, I used some Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide on the inside, and then I blended these two beautiful blues together. So I wanted to create a background that was subtle enough so that the foreground was really showcased. So what I did once I finished with the Distress Oxides is I used the new Lots of Heart stencils from Fawn and put them on top. But instead of using Distress Oxide for these stencils, I blended some Distress ink over top. So on the outside, where there is the Chip Sapphire Distress Oxide, I used a Chip Sapphire Distress ink. And this is just slightly darker than the Distress Oxide, so it gives a very subtle effect, which you'll see shortly. Now I didn't have the exact color, the Mermaid Lagoon, for the inside of the card, so I used Salty Ocean Distress ink over the areas where I had the Mermaid Lagoon, and I could see through the stencil where I had already put that Mermaid Lagoon ink. So once I finished covering the first of the two stencils, I removed it, and you can see the background is starting to come together. And then I added the second stencil on top and continued with this tone-on-tone pattern. So on the inside of the stencil, I used that Salty Ocean Distress ink, and then on the outside of the stencil, I used the Chip Sapphire Distress ink. Now don't worry if you don't have the exact color that you used for the Distress Oxide in a Distress ink, but just use something similar and you'll get this lovely tone-on-tone effect. And to make it easier to apply the Distress ink through my stencils, I'm using my finger daubers, which are very handy and they allow you to get into small places. Perfect for a stencil such as this set here. So once I'm happy with the heart stencil, I'm going to remove it, and you can see the lovely tone-on-tone background. Just gorgeous. Now the star of this card is one of the cats from the Perfectly Wicked stamp set, and I'm going to stamp him, cut him out, and color him so he looks a bit like the cat from Frosted Flakes. Now to put my Flippy Flappy card together, I'm going to use the mechanism and make sure I've lined it up on the bottom in the middle, and then I'll tape it into place and run it through my die cutting machine. Then I'll use my bone folder and fold the mechanism back and forth, flip it over, and do the same thing on the other side. I'll feed the little tab piece through that and tape it into place. And I like to test out that my mechanism is working before I go any further. Then I'm going to put some double-sided tape around the bottom, the top, and the other side. And because this is a bigger card, there's lots of room for the tape. I did use 3 layers of tape for this, and then I added the backing on my card, and then glued that beautiful background on top. So I'll leave this to dry for a moment, and meanwhile I'll work on that other piece that is the Flippy Flappy mechanism. And I've gone ahead and colored and die cut 3 of the Cerealsly Awesome cereal bowls, and I'm adding a sentiment from that set that says, "No, seriously." And then I will put the cereal bowls underneath. And I thought it would be fun to add a silly face to the one in the front. So I'm just going to stamp it on the blue bowl, and then I can color in the little tongue that sticks out there. And then once I've glued these onto the Flippy Flappy piece, I will add a little bit of sparkle to a few of those pieces of cereal so it catches the light. And you can see the finished piece here. Now I'm going to add this to my Flippy Flappy mechanism with a bit of strong tape. And then I'll just put it into place and use the mechanism a few times back and forth until it's moving nice and smoothly. The first couple times it kind of needs a bit of help, but then after a while it gets the hang of it and starts moving by itself. Now once I'm happy with the way this mechanism is moving, I'm going to decorate the front of the card. So using Oliver's stitched ABCs as well as Oliver's stitched 1, 2, 3s, I die cut a few different letters as well as an apostrophe and an exclamation and dots to spell out the sentiment, "You're great." And then my little Tony the Tiger can go in the middle there. I used some holographic paper to cut out the letters and it looks wonderful in real life. Now once I'm happy with the placement of these, I'll glue them into place and then set this aside to dry completely. It looks great so far. So using a 5 3/4 inch squared car base, I used the Flippy Flappy die to cut out a groove for the recipient's thumb, just to make it easier for them to pull the mechanism. And on the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp the other sentiment from Cerealsly Awesome. This says, "I think you're awesome." And then I'm going to stamp one of the cereal bowls and then just add the smiley face on the inside. Now before I glue the card base onto the rest of the card, I'm just going to add the little arrow to the bottom of the Flippy Flappy mechanism. And I just used black to die cut this piece, and then I can glue this onto the top of the card. Now this would be a great card to give to someone to lift their spirits, especially if they love cereal and they are familiar with Tony the Tiger. So I'm just going to glue that in place, and you can see that little groove on the front of the card makes it easier to pull that mechanism out. Now to just help highlight a few of those hearts, I'm going to use some stickles. This is the waterfall color. It's a kind of a blue color, which goes really well with the background. And I'm just going to go over a couple of the hearts, but not all of them. And that just helps to highlight the background and adds a bit more sparkle to the front of the card. And once I've put enough glitter on the front of this card, I'll let this dry for a few moments and you can now see the finished card. And I'll just put it on its side so you can see the Flippy Flappy mechanism working. A great card to cheer up someone or just let them know that you're thinking of them. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video inspiring. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!